Hey guys, it's Philip McKernan. Hope all is well with you wherever you are in the world and whatever's going on in your life. I'm here in Montana in a place called Bozeman. I've never been in Montana before. It's a little bit weird in the sense that I don't mean Bozeman or Montana's weird, but weird being here because my great great uncle, I believe, basically moved to Montana and left a very, very small rural village in Ireland. And in those days, when you left, you literally never came home, and no one ever heard from you, typically until you passed away, and then they would get notification that you died. And this man who went before me and many members of my family basically came to a part of the world I knew nothing about him. I don't know if I knew he worked in the mines, and that's about it. And whether he had friends or whether he had a relationship or was he a good guy? Was he not a good guy? Or did he do good things? Did he not do good things? I don't know much about him, but he died here, and it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe just a little subtlety, I suppose. Maybe when you're living away from your native land, I think things like that kind of resonate or land a bit more with you. And here I am back in Montana, and I'm mining, I suppose, in my own way, mining people's minds, mining their hearts, and mining their souls for their truth, for alignment, for happiness, for meaning, and all of those things. But speaking of relationships, it's just something I just want to present to people that are in a relationship, looking to be in a relationship. And I've been working with couples for many years now, and it's not the primary focus of our coaching and our retreats, but we work with individuals who are in relationships, or we've worked with relationships, or continue to work with relationships on an ongoing basis. And there's this kind of trend in the world today where people are really moving on from relationships a lot more aggressively, a lot faster, a lot more rapidly than they used to historically. And I'm not a big advocate of divorce, nor am I a big advocate of staying in a relationship that doesn't work. I'm really a massive advocate of alignment and making sure that you're following your truth, and a massive advocate of having the conversations and talking about the stuff that people typically don't want to talk about. And that often is where the greatest growth is. Sometimes people are unaware, and sometimes they're aware, they just don't want to face it. But the one thing that I am noticing, and I'm really, really noticing this significantly, is how fast we move to looking at our relationship as either the problem or the solution in the context of our lives. That we perhaps feel some disconnectedness, we feel some misalignment, we feel some sort of gap in our lives. And one of the easiest targets, and one of the most natural targets to some extent, because it's so close and it represents such a significant amount of your time, is the relationship that you walk this earth with. And I'm not talking about the relationship with yourself, I'm talking about the relationship with the individual that lies next to you, that sits next to you, that drives next to you, that walks next to you, that just your partner in life. And that when we have this feeling of unsatisfaction, or we have this disconnectedness, that we really often look to that relationship as one of the primary factors of our own personal unhappiness. And while it can contribute to it, there's no doubt in my mind, while that person may not be the best person for you, while that person may not have been the person you needed to marry or went out with in the first place, and all of those sorts of things, I just think we're moving a little bit too fast to blaming them, to pointing the finger at them, to even sitting with the harsh, reality that perhaps it is a misalignment in the context of our lives. But I do believe there's a much more important conversation, a much more important question, and that is, what is my part in this? Where do I take not just the responsibility? Responsibility often comes with a lot of blame and shame and finger pointing towards self, which is not the answer either. But where is the curiosity? It's a much more invitational word and feeling and energy towards it. Where is the curiosity in the context of, well, what's my part in this? Is it possible that even if this person did everything I expect them to do, even if I left this relationship and found the best person that ever existed, is it possible that the feeling I have, the emptiness that I have, the disconnectedness that I have, the lack of joy that I get in this world would follow me? That it would follow me. And there's no surprise that a lot of people who go through divorces end up divorcing again. And I'm not suggesting that they're dysfunctional in the context of relationships, but maybe they're slightly dysfunctional in the context of their relationship with themselves. In other words, they're looking to somebody else to make them happy, to prop up their meaning in this world and their fulfillment in this world. But maybe, and it's just a maybe, it's again, this is invitational, I'm not telling you, that maybe they just haven't addressed an insecurity, a gap within the context of their own lives, within their own souls, within their own hearts. And as I talk to a lot of very courageous couples who are prepared to do the work that most couples don't want to do, by the way, it saddens me to be in a situation where I know some of the conversations and some of the shifts that couples can make, and yet a lot of couples just don't want to step into that space. In fact, I shared recently that it's now been proven scientifically that couples wait 5 years too long or too late to work in themselves. And how I liken that, or how I describe that, is it's a hairline crack today, and it can turn into the Grand Canyon tomorrow. In other words, there's a slight gap that is not even the width of the gap between your toes today in terms of your communication and your alignment. And 5 years later, you're looking at the person across the other side of the Grand Canyon and going, who the hell are you? I think many of us wait 10 years too late to work on the relationship with ourselves. And I believe that if you feel that you need your relationship in order to be happy, I think it's a very dangerous, precarious, and challenging place to be at. I think it's a really dangerous, and I think it's a really hard ask for your partner to do that. It's relying on them. Talk about expectations, overwhelming expectations. And if you're somebody that feels that they're not fully appreciated in the relationship, and I meet a number of men and women and that feel that they're not fully appreciated, and with respect, I think it's a bit more on the female side, but I think it runs both ways. Really ask yourself a question. Is it really that I don't feel appreciated from my partner? Or is it more a case I don't really feel appreciated towards myself? And why that's so important to create that distinction is that no matter what your partner says and what they do, it's never going to be enough. And one of the other things that's come up in recent times is the guilt associated with not feeling joy, despite the fact that you apparently have a great relationship, quote unquote, and you've got wonderful children. That a lot of parents particularly feel a tremendous guilt and shame about even allowing themselves to feel disconnected or unhappy when they should be happy because they've got it all figured out. They have all the stuff that people look at them and say, wow, that's what I want. So what I would say to that is honor how you feel. Don't deny it, don't suppress it, because all you're doing is pushing it away today, and I promise you it'll haunt you tomorrow. So if you don't feel happy, honor that. Like, just give it the space and acknowledge it, name it, and work on it. Don't just assume it's going to go away on its own, because typically it doesn't. It tends to escalate and kind of compound, if you like. So my point today is just for you to consider what is your role if you feel a little bit disconnected within your relationship, you feel a little bit distant from the person, and the spark that you had is maybe kind of, dimmed or quietened, or if maybe even it feels it's extinguished. Is that really your partner, or is it more a case that there's something in you that you haven't addressed? That's really the question I'm asking. I probably could have done that in 10 seconds as opposed to 8.5 minutes. But so there you go. So hopefully that'll be, somewhat useful for some of you. And I hope you're all well. Take care.